This video is a short summary of my recent publication, Elgin Arguments. With this presentation, I wish to persuade you that some of the Elgin marbles are Roman, not Greek. In this early photograph of the Parthenon from around 1850, that is, before the restorations, we see that it is black. I think it was blackened by smoke from an ancient chimney I discovered and published in the Oxford Journal of Archaeology in the year 2002. There's still plenty of evidence of this ancient pollution today on the Parthenon. This is inside the chimney. We see masses of soot, tar, and lower down the stone is discoloured by heat. The electric wires are for lighting the Acropolis above. This shows the relationship of the chimney to the Parthenon. The white hypothetical chimney has its base on the top end of the open tunnel in the Acropolis rock. The signs of smoke turn upwards and then vanish. I therefore hypothesize there must have been a tower chimney built to take the smoke higher. We can only guess how high it was, but even if it was much less than the white chimney we see, it would have had the same effect. My theory is that the smoke so damaged the west pediment that the sculptures had to be replaced, and my guess is that the patron who did so was the Roman Emperor Hadrian, 117 to 138 AD. This is the second edition of my book, Sculpture, the Art and the Practice. It's got a special supplement on the Riace bronzes, so it explains much more fully the whole bronze casting system of the Greeks. So this is the top of the open tunnel that I found. Here is where it turns uphill. This black suddenly stops here. So I hypothesize there must have been a chimney. We don't know how tall it really was, but any chimney would do as far as I'm concerned. When we look at this photograph here, this is the length of the tunnel as you see it from the Phidian foundry, which is here. Unfortunately, the Parthenon is not in the photograph, but it's just here, up here. And here is a photograph of looking up the chimney from the bottom. These are just saplings. There would have been a wall built here, and you can see you can actually walk up that hole. It is so big. The west pediment is lighter in colour and has no signs of soot, unlike the east pediment. Furthermore, the marble looks like marble because the west pediment was carved with steel tools, not the iron or bronze tools used by Phidias and his assistants. Iron removes stone by crumbling and bruising. Steel cuts at an angle and doesn't bruise. All these sculptures are the same pentelic marble, but they do not look but the same because of the workmanship. Another important difference is the quality of the fractures. The horse of Helios have fractures softened by over 2,000 years of weather. The west pediment damage from cannonballs in 1687 are still crisp because they suffered only 115 years of weather before they were removed by Lord Elgin. The Horse of Selene is the one piece on the east pediment that I believe to be Roman. It matches in appearance the work on the west pediment. I think it had to be replaced because its muzzle overhangs the architrave and would have received the smoke rising from below directly in its vulnerable mouth. The contrast between the horses of Helios and the horse of Selene, both from the same East Pediment, is the best evidence for the idea that a lot of the original Greek work had to be replaced after nearly 600 years of pollution. Here, the difference in style is most pronounced. Selene is not only much more detailed, it is more geometric in feeling and of an entirely different quality to the Helios horse. Looking at the East Pediment, the blackening is most obvious, although it was furthest from the chimney. The colonnades and wall of the cellar would have made a good catcher and passage for the smoke, driven along by the southwest wind. All but Selene's horse shows strong signs of smoke rising from below. We see this most clearly under the knee of Dionysus and the female figures next to him. Here we see the smoke rising from below. There are still traces of smoke along this passage. An interesting feature of the blackening is best seen from the back of these two female figures. It's particularly heavy in the armpit of the one furthest from Dionysus. This is because carving into the V shape between the sleeve and flesh requires more concentrated work and therefore more bruising. The fissures in the stone have pulled in the acid by surface tension. The acid is formed as rain and soot mix in situ. The soot and acid have gone deeper than the various cleaners could reach. The heavy treatment of the cleaners in 1938 caused a scandal. The figure of Elisos on the West Pediment, Roman, is picked out for praise in glowing terms in the museum's brochure of 1930 as
an admirable example of the mastery with which the surface textures of skin, tense or loose, and the underlying muscle, fat and bones are indicated by the sculptors of the Parthenon.
I agree about the excellence, but not about the Greek authorship. The horse of Selene is by far the most photographed of the horses, and the Roman Elisos figure is not only my favourite, but was picked out for particular praise in the British Museum's catalogue, of which we've just heard the quotation. If we compare the two reclining males, Roman Elisos and the classical Greek Dionysus, there can be no doubt that the quality of Roman observation is the better. Looking at the stomach of Dionysus, we can see that there's a misfit between the chest and the stomach below that lack the splendid naturalism of Roman Elisos. At the time the government was purchasing these sculptures from Lord Elgin, a connoisseur, Richard Payne Knight, suggested that Elgin had wasted his time, that they were Roman copies of the time of Hadrian, but he was unable to show the level of proof you have seen here today. He was disgraced by the establishment for his heresy. If there's ever to be a third edition of this book, this will be the final chapter. If you're convinced by my evidence, please give it a thumbs up below. And if you have any questions or comments, use the box and I will try to respond.